This one will just be a start test as the phone loads up. Blindness is the reference that I got to talk about because I actually have a form of blindness because of the injury. This specifically is what has been kept concealed from all court proceedings in the years that I didn't know I had a form of blindness. With the severity of left side neglect and severed nerves in the brain tissue, that meant that the entire left side of the body had partial paralysis. That's seen tangibly with the limbs and the lack of medical care to address the subluxation of shoulder and hip is why the foot and the hand are permanently damaged. The blindness that I have, though, the specific form of blindness is related to the subject of neuroscience. So with this, I'm going to explain with my visual reference because it's what I need each day due to the complexity of my brain injury recovery while under assault by the people that were being funded to care for me. So knowing my form of blindness was unknown in the severity of it. On injury date of 12/4/2014, I was brought to UMass Medical in Worcester, Massachusetts, and that's where life-saving surgery was miraculous, and I was speaking within a few days of being released from the chemically induced coma. I was quickly then brought to St. Joe's in New Hampshire, in Nashua, New Hampshire, and then the court proceedings began. While I was at UMass and I was in a coma, Roger LeCompte and Lynn Howard had become guardians, court-appointed guardians awarded by Honorable Judge Quigley of the probate court in Nashua. So while at UMass Medical, they had that hearing in New Hampshire to have Roger and Lynn become guardians. Then they very quickly, a couple months later, had me, within 30 days, I'm at St. Joe's, far too early, but I was recovering quickly, so the idea was to conceal my medical condition from the court proceedings using my high level to manipulate the judge in the courts to believe something that wasn't true, as they kept the medical condition concealed, utilizing my extraordinarily high level and rare traumatic brain injury recovery. So by concealing that information, having no neurological evaluation at that time, which was required, and required because of this reason right now, the exploitation that was utilized by these people, fooling the courts about my medical condition and having guardianship put back on me as if I was a normal person while still hospitalized in New Hampshire, the concealing of that neurological capacity being undetermined was the tactical approach with the medical assault. So by fooling the courts about my condition, by willing me into the court and hiding the actual diagnosis from the judge, and me saying, yes, I can take care of myself, the Judge Quigley ruled in spring of 2015 he can be his own guardian, which was what was planned and asked for by the guardians at that time, Roger and Lynn. So by concealing my medical condition with this procedure and the unlawful ruling of having guardianship put on me, it released me into the public, but all of the other factions of New Hampshire were miscommunicated to by this court ruling because it's a court ruling, so it has supremacy as far as all the other regulations go for agencies and for civil rights and civil law. So knowing that they could do this while I was still at UMass with the transfer to St. Joe's and then the misinformation from the court proceeding while at St. Joe's to all the other directions of the state of New Hampshire, then from there all other aspects become misinformed as well. All beginning with this court ruling. Now this court ruling was in violation of the Americans with Disability Act. The citations are here specifically of the laws that it was against. This was not anyone's fault at the court. This was information of my medical condition not being provided to a judge making a ruling about my capacity which would affect my life in its entirety because of its vulnerability. Having no protection by the law, having no protection and no assistance, as the agency, Monadnock Developmental Services, is funded for my care. And this web over here is about how MDS is getting funding for the care. They're not providing the care. They're now misinforming the same way other departments to that web that's protected by the unlawful ruling while I was hospitalized. So the core of medical information of my medical diagnosis not being done, my impairment not being determined, the severity of left side neglect had not been diagnosed on properly as it was supposed to be and known by. UMass had stated that it was going to be 18 months to 2 years before a neuro eval could be done, and then cognitive capacity could be properly determined. The focus had to be 100% on physical repair. This is what was evaded. It was evaded by the tactics of Roger, Lynn, and Tim, how they coordinated with Department of Health and Human Services, getting the unlawful ruling while I was at St. Joe's in Nashua, and have used it since as this umbrella to protect their criminal exploitation. The blindness that I have, the partial blindness that I have, is very serious. So they were able to conceal that I was partially blind from my accident, and then had me sign documentation to steal everything, knowing my blindness. I had no idea. So manipulating a blind person who's medically impaired to sign things and take everything, all the while using their high-level image and their inability to comprehend that they're disabled to fool the public, to fool the courts. So they used my own high-level condition and my own charismatic attitude and cluelessness about the medical condition to fool the community of the lie that they had told the court by hiding medical information. This really does sum up exactly what's happened since 12/4/2014, and once again I'll repeat the 3 adults that attended all hospital meetings were Roger LeCompte, Lynn Howard, and Tim Donovan. I knew Tim Donovan because I was renovating his kitchen in Peterborough at his condo. He had got to know Roger because they were talking about some business development. I was in a lot of different avenues, developing a lot of different things when I got to know Tim, and I was renovating his kitchen. When I was injured, Roger, Lynn, and Tim all went to the hospital meetings. Roger, Lynn, and Tim have all interacted with me directly since release from the hospital. It sums it up. The connection of Roger and Lynn becoming guardians while hospitalized, while Tim was attending all the meetings, and then being released from the hospital as my own guardian, Tim knowing this the entire time while the owner of Robin Hill Farm and a professional on traumatic brain injury survivors, while he's still communicating with Roger and Lynn, while he's still observing all the lacking modifications of the home, and then he's bringing me to MDS, and Monadnock Developmental Services case managers are disregarding also that there's no disability modifications, and that Roger stole my insurance settlement, and that I thought my house was paid off and wasn't paid off, and now I'm in total confusion on paperwork. Still to this day, I can't do paperwork because of the partial blindness that I have, that I'm unable to comprehend that I have. I'm only now able to find it each day because the blindness that I have is the inability to retrieve information and keep it long term. My short term is very difficult, so I won't remember minutes after looking at something what I was looking at, that form of blindness. So that being concealed by the unlawful ruling and the lacking neurological evaluation, to go and see an eye doctor is ineffective because an eye doctor is not educated on neuroscience, hence the necessity of a neurological evaluation. So then all the people that I'm interacting with in state agencies after that are properly informed about my condition, and they are also well informed about the mandated policies they've got to follow to assist people that have medical conditions. So by concealing my medical condition, they were able to tactically get me into society, not knowing my condition,